What Alois Irlmaier predicted more than 80 years ago are now unfolding in the United States. Irlmaier was a quiet German man living through the chaos of World War II, someone who claimed to see events long before they arrived. Over time, a surprising number of his predictions lined up with real historical events, which is why some people began calling him one of the most unexpectedly accurate modern prophets. Now, as the situation in America grows more chaotic and unpredictable, many are wondering whether Irlmaier had, once again, seen something coming. A life reborn in World War I. Alois Irlmaier's life began in a very ordinary way, but everything changed in 1914 when he was serving as a soldier in World War I. During one military operation, a bomb exploded dangerously close to him, leaving him trapped in an underground shelter for 4 days without food or water. By the time rescuers finally reached him, he was barely alive. Yet it was in those frightening, silent hours cut off from the outside world that he began experiencing visions of events that had not yet happened. He never forgot that moment, and it quietly marked the beginning of a life that would turn him into one of the most talked-about clairvoyants of the 20th century. After the war, he tried to return to a normal life. He married, raised 4 children, and worked like any other man in his community. But the unusual visions never fully left him. In 1928, he experienced something even more extraordinary. He claimed that the Virgin Mary appeared to him, emerging from a painting and smiling gently. He described this encounter to journalist Herbert Frank, saying that from that moment on, his abilities became noticeably stronger. It was as if a door that had once opened only slightly was now pushed wide, revealing things that most people could never imagine seeing. By 1938, those visions grew so persistent that Irlmaier felt compelled to warn his local newspaper about an impending world war. His warning was dismissed at first, but only months later, World War II erupted, exactly as he had predicted. That was the moment people began paying attention. Word spread quickly, and soon families affected by the war came to him with photographs, clothing, or letters, desperately hoping he could tell them something, anything, about their missing loved ones. He said that when he saw only a shadow or a vague outline around a person, it meant they were no longer alive. For many families, his words brought painful clarity, but also closure. One of the most remarkable incidents that followed involved a police investigation. Irlmaier insisted that a buried body be exhumed because, in his visions, he saw pills in the person's stomach and a dark-haired woman connected to the death. When the body was examined, arsenic was found, exactly as he had said. Even authorities who doubted him initially had to admit that this was not something an ordinary man could have guessed. Over time, his abilities drew the attention of high-ranking officials, including German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer and even military generals, who quietly reached out to him for insight. Despite his growing fame, Irlmaier always kept a simple demeanor, saying he was merely describing what he saw, nothing more. Among his many predictions, one theme appeared repeatedly. The world would first enter a period of impressive prosperity, a time when people felt secure and convinced that progress would only continue upward. But according to him, this era of comfort would not last forever. After the prosperity, he warned, the world would face a sequence of crises, economic, social, and geopolitical. He even foresaw the possibility of a third world war, describing it as a conflict marked by devastation unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. And yet, in the midst of these grim visions, he also spoke of what would follow, a rebirth, a renewed world that would emerge after the darkest period, bringing with it an era filled with wonders and possibilities. A document attributed to Alois Irlmaier, written in 1945, contains many of these predictions. Over the decades, people have been startled by how many of them seem to echo real events that have unfolded in different parts of the world. And when we look at what is happening today, especially in America, it becomes difficult not to wonder whether another one of his warnings is already beginning to take shape. 10 predictions for the United States. Alois Irlmaier left behind many predictions about the future. but some of the most unsettling ones were the warnings he gave about the United States. And here are the 10 predictions for America. Prediction number 10, economic collapse. According to Irlmaier, a global economic breakdown would eventually strike, creating widespread suffering through bankruptcies, unemployment, and the loss of financial stability. After the 2008 financial crisis, the recovery was slow and uneven, and the pandemic added another heavy blow. Today, inflation continues to rise. Everyday expenses have become overwhelming, and many families feel like they are constantly fighting just to keep up with basic needs, such as food, energy, and housing. Even worse, the national debt has reached levels that many experts consider dangerous, raising the fear that the U.S. could be heading toward an even deeper economic storm, one that fits eerily well with Alois's warning. Prediction number 9, internal conflicts and social unrest. Irlmaier also foresaw intense internal conflicts within nations, marked by protests, revolts, and divisions so deep they would fracture societies from within. Recent years in America have shown how real this possibility is. The Black Lives Matter protests revealed long-standing wounds related to racial injustice, and the attack on the Capitol in January 2021 became one of the most shocking symbols of internal division in modern U.S. history. Political tensions surrounding immigration, civil rights, and government authority have pushed communities further apart, especially under Trump. Many people worry that these fractures could escalate into even more serious unrest, just as Alois predicted. Prediction number 8, increase in immigration and mass migration. Alois spoke about rising global instability that would push millions of people to flee their homes in search of safety or better opportunities. This trend is clearly visible at the U.S. southern border, where thousands arrive each month from countries torn apart by violence, poverty, and political turmoil. The immigration system struggles to keep up. Communities near the border are overwhelmed, and the debate surrounding immigration policies has become increasingly heated. This wave of population movement mirrors the mass migrations Alois warned about, showing how global crises ripple directly into American life. Prediction number 7, geopolitical tensions and war. Irlmaier described a major global conflict beginning in the Middle East and spreading outward. The United States, as one of the world's leading powers, is deeply entangled in these tensions. Relationships with Iran and Syria remain volatile, and the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine has pulled the U.S. into a major geopolitical confrontation through financial and military support. Meanwhile, growing rivalry with China has heightened fears about future conflict in Asia. When we connect these global flashpoints, it becomes clear that the world is entering the type of escalating tension that Alois believed would eventually lead to a much larger and more dangerous conflict. Prediction number 6, natural disasters and climate change. Irlmaier warned about increasing natural catastrophes, earthquakes, floods, storms, and environmental changes that would affect countries across the world. The United States has been experiencing exactly this pattern. California's wildfires burn larger areas each year, hurricanes in the south grow stronger and more destructive, and devastating floods in the Midwest have displaced countless families. Climate change intensifies these disasters, leaving people with a growing sense of vulnerability. In many ways, these catastrophic events are a clear reflection of the natural upheavals Alois described decades ago. Prediction number 5, collapse of moral and religious society. Another prediction from Alois focused on a spiritual and moral decline. In the United States, religious affiliation has been steadily declining, especially among younger generations. Many Americans feel that the country is losing its sense of shared values, creating a cultural landscape filled with uncertainty. This shift resembles the moral and spiritual collapse that Alois believed would unfold during times of global crisis. Prediction number 4, advancement of technology and surveillance. Alois also spoke of a future where advanced technologies would be used to observe and control people. Today, Surveillance cameras monitor streets and public areas. Drones are used for policing and security, and personal data is constantly collected by companies and government agencies. Many Americans feel that privacy has become almost impossible to maintain. The steady growth of technological monitoring, sometimes subtle, sometimes very visible, matches the environment Alois described, where modern tools would quietly tighten control over everyday life. Prediction number 3. Extreme political polarization. According to Irlmaier, political divisions would cut so deeply that they would pit citizens against one another and create a climate of instability. This is exactly what we see in the U.S. today. Elections have become increasingly tense, often marked by mistrust and accusations. This deep, growing divide is not just a political issue, it's a reflection of the societal rupture Alois foresaw. Prediction number 2. Food crisis. Alois predicted a worldwide food shortage brought on by economic instability, environmental pressures, and disruptions in supply chains. Even in a wealthy nation like the United States, food insecurity remains a serious problem. Prices have soared, supply chains have struggled to recover from the pandemic, and climate-related issues have affected farming and food production. Millions rely on food assistance programs to meet basic needs. All these factors come together to form the kind of crisis Alois warned about. Prediction number 1. 3 days of darkness. One of Alois's most dramatic predictions was the 3 days of darkness, a period during which people would need to remain indoors for safety. While the U.S. has not experienced a literal 3-day blackout, certain events offer a symbolic glimpse into what he may have been referring to. The devastating ice storm in Texas, for example, left millions without power in freezing temperatures, and hurricanes in the southeast have knocked out electricity for days at a time. Some interpret Alois's prediction not as literal darkness, but as a warning about catastrophic events that disrupt normal life and plunge communities into uncertainty. The terrifying predictions. Alois Irlmaier's visions didn't just focus on disasters or the downfall of nations. He also spoke of periods of abundance, strange innovations, political turmoil, and deep spiritual changes. When we look at his predictions today, many of them seem to echo moments in our modern world, almost as if he saw not only events, but also the mindset of the generations to come. He began by describing a surprising time of prosperity, saying, "As great as the need is now, so great will the abundance be in 20 years. Butter and lard will spoil, and bread will be thrown away as if it were sausage." Many believe this image of waste and excess reflects the post-World War II economic boom, when Western nations, including Germany, shifted rapidly from scarcity to abundance. This sudden change wasn't just about wealth, it shaped lifestyles, values, and the entire rhythm of society. But even within this era of growth, Alois warned about humanity's increasing pride. He commented on the rising use of river energy, saying, "The rivers will be taken from their beds because their power will be needed for a time." Today, we can easily see how this connects to the expansion of hydroelectric power. Yet the deeper message appears in another prediction. People will become more proud and desire all the glory that belongs to God. Then, false stars will be placed below the true ones. Many interpret this as a warning about human arrogance and the invention of artificial satellites, especially after the launch of Sputnik in 1957 placed the first false star into the sky. Alois didn't limit his visions to technology or prosperity. He also spoke about the church. He predicted that a holy pope will briefly walk the earth, a statement people often associate with Pope John Paul II. Then he added, "One will want to break all the order," which many see as a reference to Pope Francis and his sweeping reforms. These spiritual shifts, paired with rapid societal change, marked a world moving in unpredictable directions. Some of his most symbolic visions, however, were tied to geopolitics. He described a divide running through Germany. An iron fence will pass through Germany, through the middle, and whoever approaches will die. This image clearly foreshadows the Berlin Wall, built in 1961 and guarded so heavily that approaching it often meant death. Alois even predicted the modernization of everyday life, saying that roads are being built and every apprentice will have his own car, which mirrors the explosion of automobile ownership and highway development across Europe and the United States. He also warned that the Earth would not remain untouched by human exploitation. In connection with oil extraction, he said, "Only the oil is sucked from the Earth, so it becomes dry and cracked inside. I see many earthquakes." This prediction resonates strongly today, as concerns about fracking, drilling, and environmental degradation continue to grow. His view of governments was equally bleak, remarking that the devil will establish entire governments, a warning many people interpret as a sign of rising corruption and moral decay within political systems. When speaking about the United States, his words grew even more unsettling. He predicted political violence, stating that America will assassinate its own presidents, a prophecy that many connect to the assassination of John F. Kennedy. He also foresaw the rise of black leaders, captured in the phrase, "Power will come to the blacks who have been in the dust for so long," which became a reality with the election of Barack Obama in 2008, a historic moment that reflected a profound shift in American policing society. Perhaps one of his most disturbing visions describes the event many compare to the shocking event happened in America. He said, "I see the houses of clouds collapsing onto themselves, an image that powerfully resembles the fall of the Twin Towers." And when describing America's involvement in foreign wars, he warned, "America will always wage wars in the East and never win again." This statement aligns with the long, costly, and unresolved conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq, where decades of effort ended without the outcomes the U.S. had intended. Regarding China's rise, Alois remarked, "Beelzebub moves to China," which many interpret as the growing economic and military influence of China on the global stage. Environmental devastation also appeared in his visions. He warned that the soil in Germany will be burned to a depth of 10 meters by a force, a chilling image that could point to an extreme environmental crisis or even a large-scale attack. Modern warfare also appeared in his predictions, especially when he spoke of large birds with eggs of death without men, a remarkably accurate description of combat drones, unmanned aircraft dropping deadly weapons, now widely used in conflicts by nations such as Iran and Turkey. In describing regional conflicts, he mentioned that a great thief in the south will confront Russia and cause great damage, a vision some connect to the tensions in places like Georgia or Ukraine, where leaders challenged Russian influence and triggered destructive violence. He also spoke of spiritual apparitions, predicting that the Mother of God will come and give many warnings, which people relate to the famous Marian apparitions in Fatima, Medjugorje, and other places where messages of caution and peace were shared. When addressing epidemics, his warnings feel especially relevant today. He mentioned outbreaks that no one knows or can help with, a statement that echoes the shock and confusion experienced during recent pandemics that spread rapidly and overwhelmed global health systems. Even his reference to foreign interventions, people being exterminated by an alien force, is often interpreted not as extraterrestrial beings, but as the devastating impact of foreign militaries in global conflicts. A personal conversation in 1950 adds another layer to his predictions. Speaking to his neighbor, Maria Luisa Bender, he told her, "Girl, you will witness a great revolution that is coming." He described a world that would first enjoy prosperity, then fall into disbelief and moral corruption, followed by the arrival of large numbers of foreigners. Over time, he said inflation would rise sharply and money would lose its value, eventually leading to a revolution in Germany. Later, he foresaw a sudden Russian invasion of the West, an event he initially thought would happen within 10 years, but later realized he had misjudged. In his broader descriptions, Alois explained that prosperity would eventually give birth to arrogance. People would turn away from God, believing they no longer needed faith, and this spiritual emptiness would open the door to widespread moral decay. This corruption, he said, would not spare religious or political leaders. He also predicted the arrival of countless foreigners in Germany, a vision that materialized decades later when the country opened its doors to over 1 million refugees fleeing conflicts in the Middle East, many of which were linked to Western interventions. Irlmaier did not stop at warnings about political turmoil or social decline. He went much further, describing a series of dramatic global events that, if they were ever to unfold, would shake the entire world in ways we can barely imagine. Among his most unsettling visions are the 3 major conflicts he believed would unfold, one after another, eventually leading to a period of darkness unlike anything humanity has ever faced. According to him, the escalation of global tensions would spread far beyond Ukraine, triggered by the assassination of a figure of enormous importance. In one vision, he explained, "A new war in the Middle East suddenly erupts. Large naval forces position themselves in a hostile manner in the Mediterranean. The atmosphere is one of great tension. This could happen in Iran, or maybe in Syria. The 3rd assassination takes place, then the war begins. The war will be declared all at once, in a single night." His words paint a picture of a world on edge, where a single violent act sets off a chain reaction, similar to how the death of Archduke Franz Ferdinand once ignited World War I. Many people today wonder whether the important figure he mentioned could be Vladimir Putin, considering how often his name appears in discussions about global stability. Irlmaier continued by describing how quickly the conflict would spread, saying, "Immediately, revenge comes across the great waters. The Yellow Dragon invades Alaska and Canada simultaneously. It's clear that the Yellow Dragon symbolizes China, suggesting a direct attack on North American territory, something previously unthinkable but increasingly discussed in modern geopolitical debates." He then spoke of a scene so disturbing that it's hard to shake off once you imagine it. White doves fly, and shortly after, a yellow dust rains down over a line. When the Golden City Prague is destroyed, it begins like a yellow line. It stretches to the city. When it falls, everything dies. No tree, no shrub, no herd, no grass. Everything becomes dry and black. The houses remain standing. His description sounds eerily like the aftermath of chemical or biological weapons, where life is wiped out completely, yet buildings remain untouched. He went even deeper into this vision, explaining how planes would spread a yellow powder between the Black Sea and the North Sea, creating a deadly barrier wide enough to split Europe in half. In his vision, this zone becomes a place where absolutely nothing can survive, which he says is intensified by pilots dropping black boxes that release a yellow-greenish substance before hitting the ground. These, he said, were satanic boxes, devices designed not to explode but to contaminate everything they touch, killing any living being that enters the area for at least a year. Through these images, Irlmaier seemed to describe a world where warfare loses all moral boundaries and weapons of mass destruction are used without hesitation. His predictions didn't stop on land. He also spoke of a devastating event at sea, where a plane coming from the east releases something into the water that triggers enormous waves that rise like towers before crashing down with unimaginable force. The result, according to him, is catastrophic flooding and a massive earthquake, suggesting a disaster so large that it could only be caused by advanced weapons capable of manipulating natural forces. This connects directly to another part of his vision, involving southern England. Irlmaier warned that 3 major cities would face completely different fates. One would be swallowed by water, another would sink so deeply that only a church tower would remain visible, and the third would be utterly consumed. The way he described the sea violent, boiling, and rising in waves as tall as houses recalls discussions about modern superweapons like the Russian Poseidon or Sarmat, which many experts believe could trigger tsunami-like devastation. According to Irlmaier, a large object being dropped into the sea would cause an explosion so powerful that entire islands would disappear, the climate would shift abruptly, and a significant part of England, the Proud Island, would vanish beneath the water. All of this forms a picture of a world pushed to its breaking point, where human conflict and advanced weaponry combine with natural forces to create a level of destruction that humanity has never had to confront before. Irlmaier's visions grow even more unsettling as he continues describing how the oceans themselves seem to rebel. He talks about waves so powerful that they carve massive holes into the sea, holes that only close once the towering waters finally pull back. In his eyes, this isn't just flooding, it's the ocean tearing into the earth and reshaping entire coastlines. He then mentions a beautiful city by a blue sea that is almost entirely swallowed, buried under mud and sand as the waters churn violently. Alongside this, he foresees 3 major cities, one in the south, one in the north, and one in the west, eventually sinking, showing how natural forces and human-made disasters collide in ways that leave devastation on a global scale. Among his most dramatic prophecies is the sinking of another island, an event that he says would throw the global climate into complete disorder. This idea echoes the warnings of other well-known visionaries like Chico Xavier, Paravicini, and Mother Shipton, who also spoke about abrupt and extreme changes in nature. Irlmaier then describes the fall of a major city renowned for its tall iron tower, destroyed not by foreign armies but by its own residents, pointing to a kind of internal collapse that tears a place down from within. He also foresees unrest in Italy, where chaos becomes so severe that the Pope must flee and numerous churches fall into ruin. Yet even in the middle of this darkness, he insists that peace will eventually return. According to his visions, the Pope, after a long exile, will come back at a symbolic moment when flowers once again bloom in the fields, marking not only the end of mourning, but also the beginning of spiritual healing. In this period of rebuilding, he predicts that the Pope may seek refuge across the Atlantic, possibly in South America, with Brazil or Argentina as likely places of shelter. After the devastation, Irlmaier sees a slow but steady recovery taking place, eventually becoming a foundation for a new era of peace. His predictions also include a revolution and civil war in Russia, a period of internal conflict that would eventually lead the people back toward Christian faith and a renewed respect for the cross. He describes a violent clash between Russians and Chinese, what he calls red masses mixed with yellow faces, and explains that even in the midst of this terror, a spiritual rebirth will slowly rise. He imagines people returning to ancient traditions, singing Easter hymns, lighting candles before sacred images, and praying with a sincerity that had long been forgotten. In his vision, prayer becomes a powerful weapon, capable of defeating the forces of evil, symbolized as the beast from hell. He also emphasizes that the younger generation will rediscover their faith, supported by the intercession of the Mother of God. One of the most frightening episodes in his prophecies is a period of complete darkness during wartime. He describes violent hail, thunder, lightning, and severe earthquakes, shaking the earth while the world is swallowed by darkness. According to him, people must stay inside, as power grids will fail everywhere, and the only light that can be relied on will come from blessed or wax candles. He warns that the air outside will be poisoned by a toxic dust, capable of causing cramps and death to anyone who breathes it. To survive, he advises sealing all windows with black paper to keep the deadly dust from entering the home, and he emphasizes that water and any food not stored in cans will become contaminated. His apocalyptic vision reaches its peak with a catastrophic event lasting 72 hours. During this time, he urges people to light blessed candles and pray intensely, because the number of deaths, he says, will exceed the combined casualties of both world wars. He links this catastrophe to the arrival of an intruding star, a celestial body capable of blocking the sun and plunging the earth into deep darkness. Such an event could cause massive electromagnetic disturbances, leading to the collapse of global technological systems and triggering widespread chaos. Yet, after describing all this destruction, Irlmaier always returns to the idea of renewal. He believes that once humanity makes it through this dark period, the world will enter a long era of peace. Life, however, will not go back to the way it was. People will rebuild in simpler ways, living more like their grandparents did, relying less on technology and more on sustainable, traditional practices. This transition, as he describes it, marks a spiritual and cultural reset, one where people reconnect with nature, strengthen their communities, and bring their faith back to the center of their lives. To him, the cycle of destruction and renewal is not just an ending, but an opportunity for humanity to start again with clearer values and a deeper connection to the earth and to God. Not only Alois Irlmaier, but one of the famous prophet in the world also gave the warning to America. That's Baba Vanga. Trump's return to power. Many dismissed her predictions as superstition, but time and time again, the world watched as her words came true. She foresaw the September 11 event, describing iron birds striking America. She predicted the devastating 2004 tsunami, the rise of ISIS, and even the election of the United States' first African-American president. So when Baba Vanga spoke of a leader in America whose power would both unite and divide, whose presence would expose corruption and reshape history, people started wondering, was she talking about Donald Trump? Baba Vanga described the rise of a powerful figure, not from the world of politics, but from the realm of gold, business, and wealth. According to her, this man would defy every prediction, overcome impossible odds, and shake the very foundations of power itself. In 2016, almost no one believed Donald Trump could win. Every poll, every expert, every political commentator dismissed the possibility. Yet, he did it a victory that shocked the entire world. And what's remarkable is that decades earlier, Baba Vanga had already seen it coming. But that was only the beginning. She also spoke of this same leader facing endless storms, investigations, accusations, and relentless attempts to bring him down through legal and political warfare. Vanga described him as a man surrounded on all sides, standing before the courts, attacked from every direction, yet somehow still standing strong. Looking at what has unfolded, the impeachments, the investigations, the indictments, it's hard not to notice how closely her prophecy mirrors reality. Baba Vanga didn't just predict a rise. She foresaw a fall and then a return, a leader pushed into exile by relentless persecution, who later stages a comeback so powerful it reshapes politics and society. She suggested that such a comeback would not be merely about one man reclaiming power, but about a broader shift in how America operates, how authority is contested, how institutions respond, and how ordinary citizens interpret legitimacy. A return to power under these conditions could deepen divisions, accelerate realignments in alliances, and prompt dramatic legal and constitutional tests that affect every corner of public life. The man of the red light, one of Baba Vanga's most mysterious and haunting prophecies, is about the man of the red light. In her later years, she spoke of this figure appearing during what she described as the world's moment of silence, a strange period when global chaos suddenly pauses as if humanity collectively holds its breath. During that silence, she said, this man would emerge. He would be a paradox, both feared and admired, misunderstood by many, and his presence would ignite a chain of events that would completely redefine the nature of power in the modern world. Some believe Baba Vanga's words were symbolic, referring to a powerful leader or influencer, someone constantly under the harsh, red glare of media attention, where every move is scrutinized and magnified. Others interpret it more literally, connecting it to technological or cosmic phenomena, the red light of surveillance systems, warning beacons, or even celestial signs that might mark a turning point for humanity. In many traditions, red light has always carried a dual, meaning it warns of danger, yet it also exposes what was hidden in darkness. She once said, when the red light shines upon the tower, the path will split in two. Those words have sparked endless debate. Some interpreters think the tower represents centers of global power, perhaps political capitals like Washington or London, while others believe she was speaking of digital towers, the massive tech platforms that now shape human thought and behavior. The global conflict. In her prophecies, she foresaw Donald Trump's return as a catalyst for a global chain reaction, one that could push the world closer to large-scale conflict than at any time since the Second World War. She described a world where tensions between East and West would escalate, often indirectly, through proxy wars and political maneuvering, culminating in a moment by 2026 when the entire planet would stand on the brink of a crisis unlike any modern generation had experienced. Looking at the current landscape, the war in Ukraine continues to drag on, straining global alliances and testing international diplomacy. Relations between the United States and China over Taiwan have reached unprecedented levels of tension. North Korea continues to conduct weapons tests, and Iran edges closer to achieving nuclear capability. Each of these flashpoints reflects the very type of simultaneous pressures Baba Vanga predicted, creating a world teetering on the edge of either catastrophe or transformation. Yet, her message was not only one of impending doom, she also spoke of a profound awakening, a moment when humanity would begin to pierce through the illusions, manipulations, and systems that have long kept people divided and disempowered. She predicted that ordinary citizens, faced with the failures of established institutions, would start reclaiming their power and forming movements that challenged the old order. Today, we can see the seeds of this awakening in the collapse of unquestioning trust in mainstream media, the rise of independent voices, and the increasing organization of people outside traditional political structures. A silent separation. Among all of Baba Vanga's chilling prophecies, one stands out not for its dramatic events, but for its eerie subtlety. She didn't only warn of wars, disasters, or political upheaval. She spoke of a quiet, intimate, and deeply personal event, a spiritual separation that would quietly unravel the fabric of human relationships and existence itself. Baba Vanga foretold a time when love alone would no longer be enough to keep people together. She said, "A time will come when love will not be enough to hold people together. Each soul will walk its own path and some will vanish." This silent separation is not a physical rupture, but a profound spiritual divide, growing in the hearts of people, tearing apart families, friendships, and communities in ways that many cannot fully comprehend or explain. In today's world, we can already see signs of this prophecy unfolding. Families live under the same roof, but emotionally drift apart. Parents find themselves unable to reach their children, siblings stop communicating, and spouses live as strangers despite sharing a life. Baba Vanga's warning that the home will be full of voices, but hearts will be empty, the bloodline will no longer bind, echoes in this growing emotional isolation. The ties that once seemed unbreakable are unraveling, not through anger or conflict, but through apathy, misunderstanding, and a growing spiritual disconnect. This subtle breakdown extends beyond families to friendships and social bonds, where ideological differences and fear of the unknown push people apart. Baba Vanga described this process as a sorting of souls, saying, "There will be a sorting, not by hand, but by heart." This means that people who once shared laughter and memories can find themselves on separate spiritual paths, their connection dissolving because their hearts no longer resonate in harmony. This spiritual schism is not limited to individuals, but is spreading on a global scale. While the world's attention is often consumed by political conflicts, natural disasters, and economic crises, Baba Vanga's vision points to a more insidious divide, a cosmic sorting of humanity between those awakening to higher truths and those remaining asleep in darkness. She spoke of one table, two realities, one bed, two dreams, one world, two paths. This invisible line will cut through nations, cities, and even families, creating a division not based on geography or ethnicity, but on spiritual choice. The separation she described will distinguish those who embrace growth, love, and consciousness from those trapped in fear, denial, and stagnation. It is a division of the soul, the most fundamental divide possible, which many will fail to notice until it has already deeply taken root. The emotional cost of this awakening is immense. Many who begin to perceive this divide experience profound loneliness and alienation. As Baba Vanga warned, those who see the truth will feel alone. But the silence is not punishment, it is protection. This loneliness is a necessary stage for spiritual growth, a sign that one's soul is stepping away from the old systems of thought and belief that no longer serve its evolution. It is a silent call to prepare for the coming transformation. Those who remain stagnant in their spiritual journey, those who refuse to evolve, may find themselves cut off not only from others, but from existence itself. The separation is a cleansing process, setting apart the awakened souls for what lies ahead. Ultimately, Baba Vanga believed that this silent separation was a necessary precursor to a greater divine reckoning. The souls of light must be set apart from those who walk the path of darkness. However, this separation will not be marked by dramatic signs or loud announcements. It will occur softly, quietly, in the background, until the moment when the choice can no longer be reversed. As she put it, in the end, each heart will choose its master. That choice will echo in eternity. This is a profound reminder that the choices we make every day, whether to embrace truth or fear, love or indifference, determine which side of this invisible divide we will find ourselves on. In this moment of growing spiritual separation, it's vital to ask yourself, where do you stand? Have you felt the subtle pull away from old beliefs and relationships? Have you noticed the increasing tension, the emotional distance, or the sense that you no longer belong in familiar places? These feelings are not accidental, but are signs that your soul is being called to awaken, to walk a higher path. Baba Vanga's prophecy is clear. This silent separation has already begun, and the coming years will deepen this divide. The question is not if it will happen, but whether you will be among those who vanish into the shadows of spiritual inertia or among those who walk courageously toward the light of transformation. Predictions for America. Interpreters of her prophecies suggest several plausible triggers, and each one points to a different kind of vulnerability. Some readings name a violent attack on U.S. soil that would spark mass outrage and fear. Others point to a cyber-triggered financial collapse that shuts down markets and banking services almost overnight. Still others warn of a natural catastrophe so overwhelming that the federal government simply cannot coordinate an effective response. The common thread is not the precise cause, but the speed and scale of the cascade. One major disruption that overwhelms normal coping mechanisms and turns localized problems into a national emergency. Baba Vanga's warnings also get granular about geography. For the West Coast, she used images of fire and water striking together, language that many hear as an earthquake compounded by coastal inundation. An earthquake that either triggers tsunamis or interacts with volcanic and flood risks to create simultaneous disasters. If that reading is correct, the risk isn't only seismic shaking, but the compound impact on cities and ports that serve as nerve centers for the economy. Preparedness there means planning for multiple simultaneous failures, damaged transport links, overwhelmed hospitals, and disrupted fuel and food supplies that ripple inward from coastal hubs. Turning inland, her descriptions of the Midwest and the South emphasize water in unexpected places, rivers overtopping their banks, low-lying cities inundated, and communities that have never faced large-scale flooding suddenly forced to evacuate. Climate science warns of shifting precipitation patterns and more intense storms, which makes these visions more than poetic images. They describe how infrastructure built for a different climate can fail when extremes become the norm, when drainage systems, levees, and emergency response plans are designed around historical weather. A new level of storm intensity can create cascading humanitarian problems that spread far beyond the flooded neighborhoods. Perhaps the most modern and immediately actionable piece of her warning concerns food and logistics. Baba Vanga did not describe scarcity as a failure of farms to produce. She spoke of distribution systems collapsing, transport networks breaking down, and ports closing, a world in which goods exist but cannot be moved to where people need them. That maps eerily well onto vulnerabilities we already know about. Tightly optimized, just-in-time supply chains, centralization of critical ports and warehouses, and complex digital control systems that, if disrupted, would interrupt flows of fuel, food, and medicine. The practical implication is clear. Even if production remains stable, interruptions in distribution can create genuine shortages and long queues at stores. And those shortages tend to inflame social tensions when they intersect with political crisis. Reading these threads together reveals the scenario Baba Vanga sketched. Political crisis and mass protest centered on the capital, simultaneous natural disasters in key regions, and logistics failures that turn scarcity into an everyday reality. When you stack these elements, the result is not a linear problem you can solve with a single fix. It becomes an interconnected failure where one broken system amplifies stresses in others, producing displacement, contested authority, and prolonged instability. That is why emergency planners use the term compound disasters. The worst outcomes are rarely caused by one thing alone, but by multiple failures colliding at once. None of this is meant to argue inevitability. Her images are warnings about possibilities. Yet, the value of treating them seriously lies in the concrete, practical steps they imply. Strengthening local response capacity in capitals and cities, creating redundancy in food and fuel distribution, hardening digital infrastructure against cyber shocks, and investing in resilient coastal and inland flood defenses are measures that reduce the chance any single trigger becomes an existential crisis. In short, whether you view Baba Vanga's visions as prophecy or as a stark hypothetical, the takeaway is the same. A resilient society is one that prepares for linked failures, not just isolated problems.